Dale is an internationally acclaimed author and the founder of the Teaching Confidence. With confidence, everything is possible. And today, Dale is sharing with us, while each of us has strengths that are specific to us, the source of power is precisely the same for all of us. Join us as Dale Furtwengler helps us to discover the true source of power.
I honestly believe that I have found my true source of power, and indeed, I think it's the same for each and every one of us. But rather than tell you what I think that is, I'm going to share with you a couple of experiences that led me to the conclusion that I reached, and then I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are about what my source of power is and whether or not it's universal, okay? So, first experience. I'm working for a national CPA firm. It's a Friday morning. I get a call from the partner that hired me and said, Dale, are you about ready to wrap up that audit? I said, as a matter of fact, I am. In fact, I'll be in later this afternoon. Oh, good, because you're going on a wage and hour audit on Monday. I don't know anything about wage and hour law. Not to worry, we've got somebody down at the Labor Department, they're getting literature. You can read it over the weekend. Not exactly what I'd planned for the weekend, okay? So Monday morning, I show up at this little community hospital in Illinois. The manager in charge of the audit of that hospital introduces me to all the key people and leaves. Now, I'm under the impression that my job is to make sure they're not being overcharged for the wage and hour assessments that were made. So I'm busily comparing time cards to the records, and after about an hour of this, the hospital administrator comes to me and says, Dale, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm making sure that you're not being overcharged. He said, oh, no, you don't understand. We want to fight this. Oh, okay. So what are the charges? Well, this is kind of embarrassing. We've been through these before, and my attorney and I had always gotten a copy of the charges at the end of the meeting with the case manager. So we didn't take any notes. And the case manager was a real jerk, and he wouldn't give us a copy of the charges. I said, okay, do you have his phone number? He said, yeah, so I called him. And the case manager really was a jerk. He said, oh, I just got back from vacation. I have a stack of cases 3 foot high. I don't have time for this. You can call the field auditor if you want. Okay. Can I have his number? Call the field auditor. And he was at the opposite end of the spectrum. As nice a guy as you could ever hope to work with. Took plenty of time to go through the charts and so on. I met with the administrator and said, we need to talk to people at each of these levels in the organization. And so he took me and introduced me, and I had a chance to talk to them. And it became obvious fairly quickly that the charges were ill-founded, okay? So I write a little 2-page letter for the administrator. I give it to the managing partner of the firm that I work for because it was his client. He reviewed the letter and said that the only change he made is he added the word alleged in front of charges, and he forwarded it on to the hospital administrator. A couple of months later, I'm going into the office, and the managing partner and the partner that hired me are coming down the hall, giggling like little girls. And the partner that hired me says, see, I told you Dale could do it. And I go, do what? Remember that hospital audit? Yeah. They dropped all the charges. I said, well, great. And they're still giggling like little girls. I said, what's so funny? He said, well, the managing partner came to me and he asked, who do we have in our firm that can make somebody believe that they know something about wage and hour law? And I said, we don't have anybody that knows anything about wage and hour law. He said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you, who do we have that could make somebody believe they know something about wage and hour law? He said, oh, Dale's a pretty good BSer. Not exactly what I was hoping to put on my CV, right? So anyway, fast forward about 7 years. I just completed the second interview with the owners of a packaging supply wholesaler to become their CFO. We had agreed to the start date and all the terms, and we're shaking hands. I'm getting ready to leave. And one of the partners says, "Oh, Dale, forgot to mention, you're going to be in charge of credit and collection too. Is that okay?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." And as I'm walking out the door, I'm thinking, I have got to get to a library because I know bupkis about credit and collection. 6 months later, we cut the average age of their accounts receivable from 55 days to 38 days, which was 3 days better than the industry average. And we lost one customer, and it was the customer we fired. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now, what was my source of power based on those two experiences? Thoughts? Les?
Okay. Oh, there we go. So I've told you this before, that I find you to be one of the most adaptive people that I've ever met, that you're able to shift and learn deeply so many different kinds of things and develop expertise in those things in a heartbeat. And that's sort of what I see in that story.
Okay. Bill?
This goes back to what we talked about in our exercise here, and that's improvisation.
Uh-huh.
So both of those situations in my world are perfect for improvisation.
Uh-huh.
You get landed a mess, and you said yes to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you dived in.
Okay. Cynthia?
I think the power is that you were absolutely new to the situation. And so that puts you in a position just to ask questions and follow wherever that led. If you had come in with a lot of knowledge, I'm not sure you would have been as successful.
Interesting. Okay. Karen?
From what I thought I heard is you also became a student to learn what you didn't know so that you could hear what people were saying and take that information in.
Mm-hmm. Good. So learning?
So at the pit of all of that for me is that you had an internal confidence that you knew that you were capable of achieving anything.
Okay. So confidence is an aspect of it. Other thoughts? Well, you've all hit upon it. It was my confidence in my ability to learn and adapt. And I want to make this point because I think there is way too much emphasis placed, especially in the business community, but in other arenas as well, on background and experience. I had no background or experience in either of those situations, and yet I was able to achieve a positive result because of my ability to learn and adapt. And my ability to learn and adapt is no greater than anyone else in this room or anyone else in this audience. We each possess those capabilities. And once we quit evaluating our capabilities on our background and experience, we are going to find that we have much greater potential than we ever envisioned, and we are able to create much greater result than we would ever have imagined. And it's all because we realize that our true source of power is our ability to learn and adapt. Any questions? Comments? Bless?
So I think all of us can relate to what you just got done saying. We're all in that position as entrepreneurs all the time. One of the things that I have sort of created for myself as a framework for that kind of conversation is to make sure that you don't get so far down the road of something that you pretend to be an expert in something that you aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can get you in crap ton of trouble in a hurry.
Right.
And so when I feel like I'm getting to the edge of that kind of a thing in a conversation with a client, I even say, look, this is not my area of expertise, but let me share with you what my perspective is on this.
Right.
And that opens up a lot of opportunity to have more conversations about ways you can help people without having to pretend to be something that you aren't.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. Mark?
So here's my challenge. Now, I know a lot of people that are able to do exactly what you did, but there's also a lot of people whose creativity is more on a piece of paper, not thinking on their feet. How do you coach somebody who can't think on their feet, who's not doesn't have the ability to do that because their brain doesn't work that way?
And I've gotten that question before, Mark, and the thing is, don't fight nature. If your natural style is more deliberative, okay, you need a little more time to process, then just let people know that. I've done programs where I've gotten hit with a question that surprised me, one that I didn't anticipate and I didn't have a ready answer for. And a couple of ways that I dealt with that, one was at times I would turn the question back to the audience. What do the rest of you think about this? That buys me time to think. And I also get input from other people, which can trigger other ideas for me, okay? In one instance, I said, I don't really have an answer for that just off the top of my head. But if you don't mind, let me think out loud. Similar to what Les was saying just a moment ago. Let me think out loud. And as I thought out loud and went through my thought process, and they were going through it with me, then I reached a conclusion, and I shared the answer that I had concluded with them in that moment. So you can buy time when you need time, if that's your natural style. Just don't fight it. Don't try to something quickly, because you'll never be successful at that. Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.